There literally is no distinction between a thought and an emotion. We speak about them as though they are two different things, but they're not. Emotions are thoughts. In order for me to explain that, I just need to take us back to what we so often come back to, which is frequency. Yeah. And essentially, the composite of our being creates our state of being, which gives us a certain resonant frequency. And all sorts of thoughts and emotions exist within that frequency band. So whatever the frequency might be, if that is our resonant frequency, then we are going to connect to the thoughts that exist within that resonant frequency band. And if we are being contemplative, very mental, judging, then we will receive those resonant frequencies as thoughts, seemingly thoughts that we cannot control. If, however, we are very emotional and we're coming from our heart space, then we will receive those resonant frequencies as emotions. But either way, there are resonant frequencies in the plane of mind. They are thoughts. The emotion arises as a result of the thought, but sometimes we think we feel the emotion first because we're coming from our heart space. And then we think we're thinking about the emotion afterwards. But it's all happening simultaneous in that resonant frequency band. It just depends on where our current setting is, whether we're coming from our hearts or coming from our minds. The I am not safe. Let's elaborate on that because I think that's an easy one. Some of us might not resonate with the thought that is quite that distinct as I am not safe. Yeah. I think we think that every now and then. But the underlying feeling and question of, am I safe, is something I think that particularly as women, we resonate with a lot.
Yes.
Very often the thought of, am I safe with this person, in this place, in this situation? Am I safe? Resonates a lot. We think that thought a lot. And so we feel the corresponding emotion a lot too, which is some form of vigilance, hyper-awareness, perhaps even some anxiety. Why do women suffer from that, generally speaking, more than men do? I think moments of outright fear, where we're just terrified, are few and far between. When we're thinking that thought of, I am not safe, that's definitely a moment, and we notice it when that happens. But the silent hum of, am I safe, that just plays in the background. And therefore it's corresponding anxiety, or perhaps just stress and worry.
Yeah.
Do we connect that emotional state of being to the thought that's running? And it would be irresponsible, particularly in this world, to never have the thought of, am I safe? For a lot of us, we have to go through life, and that's one of the questions we have to consider. Do I have my phone? Have I got my keys? Am I safe? They kind of go together in the world that we live in, right? But how much am I allowing myself to resonate in that place of what if I'm not safe, and do I have to be afraid, and what might happen, and what am I worried about? And then that whole train starts jugging. And by contrast, an example that's almost a flip side of that. I've been going personally through a very stressful time the last few days. That's not negative. That's just my current reality. I'm going through a very, very stressful time. And it's almost impossible at the moment to not only acknowledge that reality, but not to enter into that feeling of stress. It's almost impossible. I am managing it. I'm trusting. I'm choosing my thoughts. But nonetheless, I am going through a very stressful time right now. That is just my reality.
Yeah.
However, if I don't indulge it, if I don't just allow myself to now be in a state where I'm thinking, oh, I'm so stressed and this is so stressful and oh, it's so terrible, and work up even more of that stress. And correspondingly, I'm not resistant to it either. I'm just allowing it. Here's the amazing part. If I'm not thinking that way, I can actually consciously choose to be stressed and then not be stressed. So, for example, if I were to sit here now and take a couple of really deep breaths, center myself in my heart, and then say, okay, stress. Okay, come. You're welcome. Come. No stress comes. In fact, a wave of peace goes. Quite mind-blowingly. Why? Because I'm not offering resistance to the stress. I'm accepting that right now I am in a stressful reality and it's okay. I'm just allowing it. So my resonant frequency is that of surrender, not of stress. Sometimes we have to actually give acknowledgement to past anger that we've suppressed. Sometimes that needs some oxygen. Sometimes that needs some airing. But when it is in relation to a specific thing that we have repeatedly allowed, but allowed with resistance, allowed with a rejection in ourselves, allowed with a judgment that says this isn't okay, even though my mouth is saying it's okay, it's okay. And next time it's also okay. And next time it's also okay. And the resentment is building and that's all growing inside. Guess what? When you invite the anger, all of that is going to go, hello. Yeah. We've been here all along. You've been playing nice. You haven't been very authentic. When you're angry, you're not actually feeling angry. When you're angry, you're feeling afraid because you've taught yourself that anger is scary, that it makes people reject you. You've taught yourself it pushes people away. So anger is terrifying because I won't be lovable anymore. Yeah. So when you're angry, you're not actually feeling your anger. You're not processing your anger. You're in fear. And I mean, the thoughts that we've repetitively thought and been programmed with to where they now especially are a belief in terms of our self-concept, in terms of the beliefs that we hold about what we think about ourselves. And the fact that there's this internal driver that says, I must be nice. I must be a good girl. And nice, good girls don't get mad. They don't throw their toys. They don't get rejected by anybody. But there's no authenticity in that. I can be lividly angry and still be kind. You know what, hun? Last week, Thursday, when you blah, 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 wow, that made me angry. And when I say that, I'm not hurting you at all because I am just being authentically honest about my own feelings. I'm not projecting some kind of ugly at you. I'm not expecting you to be a perfect human being. I'm holding space for the fact that every now and then you'll hurt me or disappoint me or make me angry. Right. And I have to be able to trust our relationship enough to be able to be that authentic with you. You don't have to turn into the rage monster who says all sorts of awful things about now, I don't like your hair or something because I'm angry with you. That's equally inauthentic. We get angry and we start flinging insults that we regret later because that's not actually what we're feeling. What we're feeling is let down or disappointed or hurt, and our biggest need is to share that. So learning how to share that in a way that doesn't harm you. There's no desire for spite or revenge. There's a genuine need to connect and to share. That stays kind and stays respectful and can still honor the love. To me, that makes all the difference. Well, for me, I'm a Libra, so everything goes in my scales. So I would say, okay, here's the hurt or the anger or the disappointment that this person caused. And here's how much I value this person. What's more important? So if I don't feel safe enough to share that hurt with this person, is that hurt significant enough that I'm willing to lose the person? Or do I value the person so much that I'll just deal with my own feelings? And the answer is going to be different depending on who the person is. And it's about giving ourselves the acceptance and the love and the care and the honesty that we wish we could get from other people, but 90% of the time we cannot or we don't. That's what it means to truly start loving ourselves enough to recognize that our emotions are thoughts and therefore under our control. The armchair psychologist in me can't help but go to conduct disorders, personality disorders and conduct disorders. And, you know, where those arise, what their origins and roots might be in very simplistic terms. And so for me, those kind of behaviors really do come down to an internal setting that is almost a permission. There is an internal belief system that gives itself permission to do and to say and to behave in certain ways that even the whole of society could condemn, and yet the self-concept does not. And so for me, that permission, because that's where our will lies, right? That permission is such a key. If I find myself doing something that is less than ideal, what I need to do is not just correct the behavior externally, but I need to revoke the permission that I have given myself in my will to actually choose that conduct, to actually express that kind of behavior. And then perhaps I could address the thoughts that underlie it. Why do I believe and think the things that I do that then cause me to conduct myself in a certain way and to have certain behaviors, responses, and reactions? It's about revoking that permission, actually requiring more from ourselves. That's a big deal for me. Now that I'm in my 50s, I'm really a mellow person. I'm really very peaceful most of the time. People who know me in real life will talk about how amazingly calm my energy is and how they catch that calmness from me. And it's all gentle and lovely. But I was not that way at all when I was young. Believe it or not, I'm a very high energy person and I can be really intense. I've got a lot of sparkle and when I get excited, it can come on really strong. And in its negative aspect, when I was younger, man, was that a fiery temper. I was the door slamming, plate throwing queen. And I grew up with an example from more than one person that said it was okay to behave that way. In fact, to such an extent that I'd never consciously examined whether it was okay or not to behave that way. It was my normal. That was how you behaved. If you were angry or you were upset or someone did the smallest little thing, then it was no holds barred in terms of your own conduct. And it took me coming into relationship with someone for whom that was completely not true. And to have that person look at me and go, wow, that's wild. Like, why do you behave yourself like that? To catch myself and go, like what? What do you mean? Because it was my normal. And to actually be confronted for the first time with the fact that, hey, I've actually given myself permission to be this kind of a person. Yes, you can have those strong emotions. I still do to this day. They haven't dissipated at all. But I would never conduct myself that way ever again. I haven't since before I was 20. Because this person that I valued so much confronted me about the permission I was giving myself in terms of how I was conducting myself in the world. Your emotions, your moods are not permission slips to treat other people less than lovingly or disrespectfully. And so for me, that was a profound personal choice moment where I literally went to the bathroom. I looked myself in my own eyes in the mirror and I asked myself out loud, is this who you want to be?
Yeah.
And I answered myself, I said, no. And I made a vow to myself, a sacred vow that I've never broken, that I would never behave that way again. And it is about revoking that permission, revoking that consent, and requiring more from the self. Was it difficult sometimes not to slam the door and not to throw the plate? Oh, yeah. I white-knuckled it for quite a few years. But now I have learned how to have really strong and intense emotions and not express them in negative conduct. I've learned not to speak until I am in control of how I feel. Balance. Getting the balance right between the self and whoever the other is. Because here's a challenging one. We're pretty good at recognizing negative, like outright negative conduct and behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And then as we mature, correcting that in ourselves. Other people serve as mirrors for that very well for us. But what about all the ways in which there's no balance to our positivity?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Again, if I have to use myself, I am an overgiver, extreme extent. And I'm using the present tense because I'm not over it. I'm not over it. I've gotten better than I used to be. But I was so bad that that's not saying much. This is something that I am still present tense having to work on myself about. Because the extent to which it has become an acceptable behavior for me, the way that I feel safe, the way my role in life is to give and give and give and give, even when it hurts, even when it's detrimental, even when it's literally bad. I will give and give and give and give. And there are many kind of examples like that, where it looks loving and it looks positive and it looks, virtuous. But at its heart, it's so imbalanced that it is not a good thing. Yeah. Learning where to draw those lines, to hold a boundary without guilt, to be able to say no. I think this challenges so many people. And the more we tell ourselves we get naughty badges for it, the more we tell ourselves this makes me a good person, this is a loving and a lovely thing that I do. Is it? Really?
Right.
Really? In the balance, how much are you hurting? How often are you saying yes when you don't want to? How often are you giving what you cannot?
Yeah.
And I don't just mean materially.
Right.
Energetically,
right.
Spiritually, in terms of investment of your time. How much of that do we do, but it's not authentic? It's not coming from a heart that wants to. It's coming from that drive that for some reason must. And so I think in many respects, it's those behaviors that are even more challenging than the, stop saying the F word every second sentence. Use life as a mirror to allow the people in our lives and our relationships to serve to show us what these patterns in ourselves are. Because so often we're blind to them. So if you have an advantage taker in your life, why is that mirror there? What is it trying to show you? If you have what they call the energy vampires in your life who drain you and take up your time, why is that person there? Why have you gifted yourself that mirror? What is it trying to show you? Because everyone and everything in our lives is serving us to see what those unconscious thoughts, self-concepts, and beliefs are that are creating these behaviors, because the behaviors are the symptom. They're not the problem. There is something inside that is just causing those behaviors, feeling compelled to those behaviors. And that is what we need to look at. And so the people in our lives, good, bad, and ugly, serve that purpose. You know, we have teachers that we love, people and events and circumstances in our lives that teach us and we love it. And then we have teachers that we loathe, and they tend to be the more important ones because it is exactly that we are rejecting, that we are projecting for ourselves to see. So yes, like them or loathe them, everyone and everything is a teacher if we'll let it be. Grace. Grace for the self. Every time that our behavior doesn't quite meet the standard that we're reaching for, every time we face plant, like you say, every time we're just human.
Yeah.
We're not perfect.
Yeah.
We react, we respond. Grace. We live in a
Yeah.
universe of grace. So can we please have some for ourselves? Can we just go a little easier on ourselves? Yeah. And just be okay with the fact that we're not going to do it all right all the time, and that's all right.